Are you ready to hear stories that will send chills down every fiber of your body?
Today you're going to hear things that will make you look over your shoulder, maybe even hold your breath. Close your eyes, or keep them open if you dare. Because when the darkness speaks, you cannot escape.
I've been listening to Invoke Dread for quite a while, but I never imagined I'd have a reason to send in my own story. Still, after what happened to me last month, I felt like I had to share it. I'm in my early 20s and trying to finish college without drowning in debt. To make that happen, I juggle a few side jobs. One of them is delivering food through a delivery app, whenever I have some spare time between classes, work, and the gym. One evening I was online in the app when a new order popped up from a fast food restaurant. I accepted it right away because I was already close to the location. The delivery address, however, didn't look familiar. That was strange because I know most parts of the city pretty well. Still, I didn't think too much about it. I picked up the order and had to wait a little longer than usual for the employees to finish preparing the food. Once they finally handed me the large insulated bag filled with burgers and fries, I got back in my car and started driving toward the destination. That's when I noticed the address was almost at the very edge of the delivery zone. In my mind, the food would probably be cold by the time I got there, but honestly, that wasn't my problem. Whoever placed the order could already see the estimated delivery time in the app. What started bothering me was the drive itself. The farther I went from the busier parts of town, the more run down everything looked. First, I passed through an older urban area that had clearly seen better days. Then I entered a neighborhood that looked completely forgotten. Old houses, dim streetlights, and almost no signs of life anywhere. It was the kind of place you see in movies when they want to show a city that's slowly falling apart. The strangest thing was the lack of graffiti or trash. It didn't even look like people hung around there. It felt like absolutely no one wanted to be in that neighborhood. That's when I started feeling something I can't fully explain. A few days earlier, I'd heard someone on Invoke Dread describe fear as a prickling in your bones. At the time, I thought it was an interesting way to describe it. Now I understood exactly what they meant. As I drove through those empty streets with the smell of fries and burgers filling my car, my whole body started to tingle in this uneasy way. Nothing specific was happening, but something deep inside me kept telling me that something about that place just wasn't right. Still, I kept driving. Eventually, I reached the address. The house sat at the very end of a nearly dead street. Every other house around, it was dark. Some had broken windows. Others had boards covering the doors. They looked abandoned, like no one had lived there in years. But this house was different. Bright lights were shining from every window and loud music was playing inside, some kind of upbeat pop punk that felt completely out of place compared to the eerie silence of the neighborhood. I grabbed the insulated food bag from the passenger seat and stepped out of the car. The order was surprisingly heavy, probably enough food for several people. I walked up the short driveway and knocked on the door. At first, nothing happened. I had to knock a few more times before I noticed the music inside get quieter. Finally, the door opened. A guy who looked to be in his mid-20s stood there. He was tall, wearing a band t-shirt, and had a slightly spaced-out expression like he might have been a little high. Even so, he seemed friendly enough. I told him I was there with a food delivery. He looked down at the bag in confusion, then turned and yelled into the house asking if anyone had ordered fast food. Two voices from inside answered no. I explained that it was a pretty big order, so maybe someone had forgotten to mention it, but he frowned and said there were only 3 people in the house that night, and they had already ordered pizza not long before. He seemed genuinely confused, so I pulled out my phone and showed him the order on the app. The address was exactly the same. Story: The Neighbor Who Knew My Name Before I Said It. Submitted by Letitia, adapted for narration. Some stories show us that danger doesn't need to knock on the door. Sometimes it's already on the other side of the wall, listening to everything. Now I'm going to tell a story that made me rethink how much people can know about us, but even when we've never been introduced. Good evening, Elias Crow. My name is Letitia. What I'm about to tell happened about 2 years ago in a small town in the countryside of Goiás. I had just moved into an old townhouse-style condominium. It was cheap, quiet, perfect for someone who wanted to start over after a bad breakup. The house next to mine was empty. Curtains closed, a dry garden, and a faded "for sale" sign on the gate. I liked the silence. I worked from home, went out very little, and lived a quiet routine, but after a few weeks I started noticing something strange. Whenever I talked on the phone in the backyard, I would hear a soft click from the other side of the wall, as if a curtain were being opened. I would look at the neighbor's window. The curtain was still. Nothing. Then the click would come again, every time I laughed with a friend on speakerphone, every time I argued with my ex through voice messages, every time I cried alone at night. It felt like someone was listening and taking notes. At first, I thought it was paranoia. But one night my dog, a quiet mixed breed named Max, started growling at the living room wall. He stood still, ears up, staring at the plaster. I walked closer. I heard breathing, slow, on the other side of the wall. I put my ear against it. The breathing stopped. Then it started again, closer, as if whoever was there had leaned in too. The next day I asked the building manager about the house next door. He said it had been empty for more than a year, the previous resident. An elderly woman named Dona Helena had died alone. No one wanted to buy the place, but he lowered his voice and added, "She was strange. She said she could hear everything, that she wrote down the neighbors' conversations, that she kept their secrets." I started recording the backyard with my phone. On the third night, the audio picked up something. I was talking to myself about a debt I couldn't pay. From the other side of the wall came a low whisper. My full name. Leticia Christina, you're not going to be able to pay it anyway. I froze. I had never told my full name to anyone in the condominium. I had never said that out loud to anyone except my ex. I installed a camera facing the neighbor's backyard window. On the first night, the camera recorded something. At 2:47 a.m., the curtain in the window next door moved. A pale hand held the edge. It didn't open it. It just held it for almost 10 minutes. Then it let go. The curtain fell back into place. I called the police. They went there. They broke open the door of the empty house. Inside, nothing, furniture covered, with sheets, thick dust everywhere, but in the bedroom facing my backyard, there was a chair turned toward the window. On the floor, an old notebook, pages full of notes, dates, times, my conversations, word for word, my name written several times, with dates from before I moved in. The police said it was a coincidence that the notebook was old, that it probably belonged to the deceased woman, but I know it didn't. Because on the last page, written with fresh black ink, was yesterday's date, and a sentence, "Leticia, you will come back here." I moved out a week later. I left everything, furniture, clothes, even Max. Stayed with a friend. I went to live with my sister in another city. Today I avoid old condominiums. I avoid shared walls. But sometimes when I'm alone at home, I hear a click, as if a curtain were slowly being opened on the other side of the wall. And I know it's not paranoia, because now when I close my eyes at night, I feel that someone is watching me. Not through the window, not through the door, through the wall, and whispering my name exactly the way she used to.